Good morning and good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Roundtable on discussion on women's economic empowerment and investment, and women's investment into women's entrepreneurship. My name is Theodora Dell, and I'm the Director of the Office of South and Central Asia at the U.S. Agency for International Development. It is my pleasure to be the moderator of today's discussion. I would like to point out the interpretation button just below the screen. You can choose English or Russian interpretation there. And now I would like to welcome the Ambassador of the Republic of Kazakhstan to the United States, Mr. Zhan Kazakhanov, to open the roundtable. Mr. Ambassador, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Ms. Dell. Good morning, good evening, everyone. Ladies and gentlemen, distinguished friends, it is a great honor for me to open this high-level event devoted to the women's economic empowerment and investment into the women entrepreneurship. First, I would like to extend my sincere gratitude to all of our distinguished guests for joining us today. We highly appreciate the support of the U.S. State Department and especially Assistant Secretary Mr. Dean Thompson for his efforts on building strong ties in this area. Let me also thank Governor of Astana International Financial Center, Mr. Kelimbetov, for co-hosting this event. My special thanks goes to the chairwoman of the Committee of International Affairs, Defense and Security of the Majlis of the Parliament of the Republic of Kazakhstan, Ms. Aygul Kuspan, and the chairwoman of the International Commission on Women and Affairs and Family and Demographic Policy under the President of Kazakhstan, Ms. Lazat Ramazanova, for supporting this initiative. We also appreciate the high-level participation from USAID, World Bank, DFC, UPS, KazAid, and government agencies of the two countries. Women's economic empowerment has a profound potential for lifting the prosperity of the modern society. According to the McKinsey consulting firm report, if women had equal opportunities to men running business, the global GDP would go up by 28 trillion by 2025. It means that the world economy would have been increased by almost 30%. Gender equality and women empowerment was adopted as one of the Sustainable Development Goals of the United Nations at the beginning of the 21st century, which was accepted by all nations. Despite some progress over the recent years, women are still overrepresented among poor globally. On top of that, we observed that the hit of the pandemic on women was much harder than one on men. To prevent this risk, Government of Kazakhstan believes that the country should build constructive dialogue, search for common solutions and partnerships. Kazakhstan has a long-standing policy of legislative support to women. We strongly believe that investing in women's economic empowerment is a prerequisite for a prosperous, peaceful, and sustainable society. Last week, President of Kazakhstan, Kassym-Jomart Tokayev, in his speech highly prioritized the gender-related matters, stressing the need for further improvement of status of women and increase investment into women entrepreneurship. Today's roundtable is a very timely event. Kazakhstan expresses its interest in strengthening and further develop cooperation with the United States government, international financial institutions, and non-governmental organizations in promoting women's empowerment and entrepreneurship. We believe that through our joint efforts, we could bring difference to the lives of many women in Kazakhstan, Central Asia, and a broader region. I hope that our today's dialogue will open new avenues for our long-term partnership, which will change the well-being of a great number of girls and women. The ones who are weak today will become strong. The ones who lack education will get bright intelligence. The ones who need support to start the business will be trusted. It is all in our hands, in our will, in our perseverance. Let me once again thank you all for your participation, and I would like to give back floor to the moderator. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Ambassador. I now turn the floor to Mr. Dean Thompson, Acting Assistant Secretary of the Bureau for South and Central Asian Affairs at the Department of State.
Well, thanks, Teddy, and a big thank you to Ambassador Kazakhanov and to the Embassy of Kazakhstan for arranging this important webinar. And let me also just take yet another opportunity to congratulate the ambassador on his tenure in Washington and wish him all the best as he moves on to new opportunities. This important webinar on women's economic empowerment in Kazakhstan and Central Asia really sets us up to discuss the advancement of gender equality and women's empowerment as a critical foreign policy priority for the United States across South and Central Asia and countries globally. We know that where women prosper, countries thrive. We look forward to continuing our work with the government of Kazakhstan to explore avenues for women to play a leading role in your country's future and growth. And we don't have to look further than our own backyard to understand the windfall gains from accelerating investments in women's economic participation. In the United States, women's labor force participation has nearly doubled since 1950. And because of this, the economy grew by $2 trillion. So I think very much in line with some of the numbers the ambassador was just noting, if we were to look at this type of arrangement on a global scale. When women joined the workforce, wages went up for everyone, and women's income accounts for most of the increase in family income in the United States. Now, at the same time, inequality remains prevalent, both here in the US and around the world. And I think we all recognize was exacerbated by COVID-19. The Center for American Progress estimates that mothers leaving the labor force and reducing work hours to assume childcare during the pandemic will cost the United States almost $65 billion per year in lost wages and economic activity. And I imagine Kazakhstan is experiencing similar economic cost due to the pandemic. It's in this context that the United States has identified and intensified its efforts to promote women's economic empowerment at home and around the world. We know that women in Kazakhstan are underrepresented in the industrial sector, which is the most profitable and which offers the highest wages. The gap starts early with university women enrolling at lower rates in STEM fields as compared to men. To empower young Kazakhstani women to pursue education and future careers in STEM, the quote, Tech Girls 4-week exchange program provides leadership and hands-on skill development. Participants conduct community-based projects in Kazakhstan and are connected to a network of women leaders in STEM. Our next cohort will be held virtually this coming summer. In addition, Kazakhstan American Spaces have partnered with Chevron to offer year-round activities that include tech camps for girls, coding courses, and speaker events with successful entrepreneurs from across the country. To support women in STEM, Tech Women brings emerging Kazakhstani women leaders in science, technology, engineering, and mathematics together with their professional counterparts in the United States for a mentorship and exchange program. Since 2015, 23 women from Kazakhstan have participated in the program. Now, we recognize STEM is just one area of critical importance in boosting economic participation and entrepreneurship, where women remain underfinanced and constrained by a lack of networks and access to markets. We also support empowering women in the artisan sector to become micro-entrepreneurs by creating the Makers to Market Forum in April. This project is sponsored by the State Department's Bureau of Economic and Business Affairs Power Initiative, and will be focused on creating a direct business link between Kazakhstani artisans and US businesses and experts interested in sourcing handmade products. In just a few weeks, we will be launching the Academy for Women Entrepreneurs, known by its acronym AWE. in partnership with the State Department's Bureau of Educational and Cultural Affairs. This program will offer a facilitated online course for women in business and entrepreneurship in Kazakhstan, as well as across the globe in about 80 countries this year. This will provide follow-on activities and networking as well. Looking forward, we would support the launch of a joint working group to identify opportunities for additional cooperation to address barriers and solutions to women's access to finance and addressing gaps in education and opportunity, critical needs in this particular area. This working group would be central to our collaboration with the government of Kazakhstan to bolster economic growth, trade, and competitiveness. We know women have the potential to be a driving force in Kazakhstan's economy and look forward to working with you as partners to advance gender equality and the rights of women and girls across your country. I would now, Teddy, I'll either turn it back to you or hand the floor to Kat, whichever you prefer. Thank you so much for having us to be part of this today.
Thank you very much, Mr. Thompson. And now I would like to invite Mr. Kairat Kilimbetov, Governor of the Astana International Financial Center and Chairman of the Agency for Strategic Planning and Reforms of the Republic of Kazakhstan.
Thank you very much. Dear ladies and gentlemen, one of the goals of Kazakhstan's gender policy is to create conditions for women to actively participate in public administration. Planned increase of women in the management roles in a government institution up to 30%. Therefore, the issues of ensuring the economic advancement of women take an important place in public policy. Kazakhstan still has a lot to do to strengthening the leadership role of women in ensuring peace and security, empowering rights and opportunities in all spheres of life. The Agency for Strategic Planning and Reforms of the Republic of Kazakhstan recognize the importance of gender statistics in the evidence-based policy making. But we understand that any reforms in promotion of any policies should be started from ourselves. In this regard, the ratio of women in the top and middle leadership positions in the agency equals to 40%. Currently, within the Astana International Financial Center, AIFC, we are working to launch our own initiative, which stands for Women's Economic Empowerment, Education, and Entrepreneurship, with the goal of unlocking women potential in the region. The initiative will consist of two tracks, education and investment. Educational track aims to improve access for women to educational courses and business. Investment track will focus on attracting capital dedicated for women entrepreneurs. Through AIFC, we are taking a holistic approach to unleash full women's potential, not just in Kazakhstan, but in the whole of Central Asia region. In December 2020, we established the AIFC Women Leadership Award. The award was named in honor of Lady Barbara Judge. I see representative of the DFC among the speakers today. We have signed a MOU with DFC in early January this year, and it was one of the best examples of our commitment to women leadership in the whole region. AIFC has all necessary financial infrastructure to serve as a partner to expand access to international financing for women entrepreneurs. At AIFC, we believe that there are many women entrepreneurs in the region that fit the investment requirements of the international financial institutions, and AIFC is ready to serve as a partner in facilitation attraction of new investment into Central Asia. Thank you very much again for your attention.
Thank you very much. And our next speaker is Dr. Karen Groen, the Global Director of the Gender Group at the World Bank, and she will discuss World Bank's global initiatives on women empowerment.
Thank you so very much. I'm very pleased to join you today, and I'd like to compliment the government of Kazakhstan for all of the reforms that you have recently initiated, as well as this program. Let me provide a little bit of context based on some of the analytics that the bank has been doing, and they support the findings that everybody has been speaking of. We run household surveys in countries around the world to determine impacts, and there are many. And in many domains, women are facing harder impacts than are men. So the first domain is job losses. We have in 48 countries where we've run household surveys, the job loss rate for women is about 7 percentage points higher than it is for men in 42 of those countries. And of course, that's because of the sectors where women work, which have been subject to all kinds of restrictions and impacts as a result of reduced mobility and so forth. And it's also the case in terms of different categories of work. In informal work, women have lost more jobs than have men because of lockdowns and other restrictions. Firms, women-owned firms are not exempt from this. We have found that women-owned firms at the beginning of the pandemic had higher closure rates. They've had reduced sales and profits. And I have to say, in the surveys that we're running since then, they have been slower to reopen than have male-owned firms. And the other impacts, of course, are that both women employees and women firm owners are spending much more time as a result of school closures in caring and in unpaid work. And just to give you one sense of this, 23% of female business leaders with a partner, this is from a survey that we partnered on with Facebook, spent more than 6 hours per day on domestic tasks compared to only 12% of male business leaders. So we really need to think about all of these impacts when we think about solutions. The one thing that we've also done is 2 weeks ago, we have released our Women, Business, and the Law report. And this report focused on 2 areas. What are the things that governments are doing in the time of COVID? What can they still be doing? And then it also focused in particular on one area that responds to the last point that I just mentioned, what governments are doing on childcare. And we know that countries that have stronger gender equality laws have better performance in the economy. But unfortunately, women still have only 3/4 of the legal rights of men. But many governments have taken steps to reform, particularly on the economic domain. Close to 40 economies have introduced leave or benefit policies, which are important. Women navigating family law issues. There's been reforms to justice systems, including extending remote hearings and other issues. And there's been some progress on the child care front. And I want to commend Kazakhstan because on several of the indicators for women, business, and the law, Kazakhstan does get a perfect score in terms of freedom of movement, constraints related to marriage, and gender differences in property and inheritance. But as you consider the reforms that you're making, there is some room for improvement. And this particularly is laws related to equal pay. Women's pay in the 2021 pay indicator was less than the neighboring countries and less than the threshold that it could get to. So you might want to consider mandatory equal pay for equal work of equal value, allowing women to work in jobs deemed dangerous in the same way as men, and allowing women to work in an industrial job in the same way as men. Beyond legal reform, I think there's many good examples of investments in economic activity that should be part of an inclusive and sustainable recovery from the COVID pandemic. We just released a report yesterday on the importance of childcare, and I want to echo my colleague from the US who has mentioned this. Unfortunately, we know that over 40% of children worldwide, nearly 350 million children below primary school age need childcare, but do not have access to it. So it's absolutely critical to make childcare part of economic infrastructure and have diverse childcare solutions, but it's absolutely critical to have public support for this, in addition to support from the private sector to make this happen. I want to commend you as well for the work for micro and small and medium enterprises. We know that it's really important for the banking and the financial sector to be able to have credit guarantees and working capital extensions to female-owned firms. But I also have to say the work of blended finance for women-owned firms is something else, another tool that could be used. And my last point is that you have mentioned investments in statistics to fill gender data gaps. I think this is really critical, and I want to commend you for doing that. And there are many, including on what we don't know about women-owned, about women in the economy on outcomes. But there's one that I particularly want to mention. Through our Women Entrepreneurs Finance Initiative, we're going to be thinking about launching something called the We Finance Code, which is voluntary. And this is a code that we hope central banks, countries will join with central banks, as well as financial institutions. The idea is to expand data on the amount of financing that goes to women entrepreneurs to grow their businesses. So the idea is to work with all financial institutions to put in place the data systems to be able to collect information on the users of their products and services, and to be able to report those publicly. And there are many interesting models around the world right now in governments like Chile, which has been doing this for years, but governments like the State Bank of Pakistan, which are putting in place such a mechanism for data and reporting. And I'd like to suggest that maybe Kazakhstan consider that going forward. So in conclusion, let me commend you for all that you're doing, and we're really pleased to be a partner with you as you go forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Grown. I now turn to Ms. Aygul Kuspan, Chairwoman of the Committee of International Affairs, Defense and Security at the Majlis of the Parliament of the Republic of Kazakhstan.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Dear participants and colleagues, it is my pleasure to join you all in today's discussion dedicated to a very important theme, the empowerment of women. Let me begin by thanking Ambassador Kazikhanov for inviting me to this important event, and AIFC Governor Kairat Kelimbetov for providing such a unique platform. I would also like to thank our colleagues from the US Department of State, the US Development Finance Corporation, and the World Bank. The 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development encompasses 17 development goals, including SDG number 5, which is about achieving gender equality and empowering all women and girls. Kazakhstan ranks 72nd globally in the World Economic Forum's Gender Gap Index. Since its independence, the government of Kazakhstan has been actively targeting gender discrimination. To establish a strong institutional framework, it has adopted the concept of family and gender policy up to 2030 that intended to expand women's economic rights and develop family institutions. Within the efforts to further expanding gender policy, in 2009, the Parliament of Kazakhstan ratified the Law of States Guarantees of Equal Rights and Equal Opportunities for Men and Women, and the Law on the Prevention of Domestic Violence. Kazakhstan is aimed at further strengthening legislation on prevention of domestic and sexual abuse. The government is closely working with civil groups, NGOs, and international organizations on eliminating inequality and discrimination of women in Kazakhstan. Moreover, Kazakhstan became the first Central Asian country to establish a national entity to promote gender equality, the National Commission on Women, Family, and Demographic Policy. Within the head of state's first package of political reforms, the 30% quota on electoral list for youth and women has been initiated. Kazakhstan actively supports international efforts to expand women's economic opportunities. With the new platform, Dialogue of Women Leaders of Central Asia, the parties discussed women's opportunities to influence decision-making process. In 2019, the US government initiated the Women's Global Development and Prosperity Initiative. We joined the core group of UN states to sign the call to action on women economic empowerment on October 23rd, 2020, initiated by the US government. We strongly believe that cooperation in the area of WGDP initiative will help us to unlock the potential of women entrepreneurs in Central Asia region. We consider it crucial, especially during the pandemic, since the current economic crisis hit women the most. We believe that cooperation in advancing women economic opportunities in Central Asia and Afghanistan is quite important. In this context, Kazakhstan hosted on September 5, 2018, the first regional conference on empowering women in Afghanistan. The participants adopted the Astana Declaration that highlighted concrete measures to promote and advance the economic rights of women in Afghanistan. I would also like to mention that Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, and the European Union, in partnership with the United Nations, launched a pilot project to conduct vocational trainings and educate Afghan women in institutions of higher education in universities in Kazakhstan and Uzbekistan. Today, we will be hearing from one of the Afghani participants about her experience in this program. It is a lively example of how joint international efforts can make a difference in the region by empowering women and expanding their potential. Once again, let me thank you all for your participation and wish a fruitful discussion.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kuspan, for those words. I now would like to invite Ms. Anjali Kaur, the Deputy Assistant Administrator of the U.S. Agency for International Development, to speak on USAID's vision for women's economic empowerment in Central Asia. Anjali.
Thank you, Teddy. Good morning and good evening, everyone. Thank you for inviting me to speak today about such an important topic. And as all the speakers have said prior to me, empowering women and girls is essential to the economic and social development of families, communities, and countries. And I want to further emphasize that. When women can realize their full potential in the marketplace, the workplace, and the community, everyone benefits. According to the 2020 Global Gender Gap Report, if women's economic participation continues to grow at the current rate, it will take 257 years to reach equality between women and men. Yet some of the greatest returns on investments occur when we focus on women's economic empowerment. At USAID, our Women's Economic Empowerment Fund supports projects in more than 60 countries, partnering with the private sector, non-governmental, and local organizations, as well as host country governments. We work to address barriers across sectors such as health, gender-based violence, including sexual harassment, access to education, lack of childcare, and other critical areas, integral to promoting gender equality and women's empowerment. Women's economic empowerment is a priority for USAID in Central Asia. There is much work to be done. We work with the Office of Global Women's Issues to bring together women's coalitions throughout the region to foster women's economic empowerment in Kazakhstan, the Kyrgyz Republic, Tajikistan, Turkmenistan, and Uzbekistan. These women's coalitions are establishing national women's business agendas to remove the economic barriers for women by raising awareness of the unique challenges of women-owned businesses and advocating for policy change. Through USAID's Central Asia Trade Forum, we create networking opportunities for women to learn from one another and other business leaders. One such successful entrepreneur is the president of the Kazakhstan Association of Sugar, Food, and Processing Industry, Aizan Uzgaliyeva. As a result of her participation in the forum since 2015, the association has expanded its network by 300%, and its members now interact with businesses from across Central Asia. Internships are a proven gateway to increase participation of women in male-dominated fields, where their entrepreneurship can lead the way. Let me give you an example from someone from USAID's energy program, Alue Zulgazi. She's a first-year electronics and electrical engineer student in Nazarbayev University in Nur Sultan. After completing an internship with USAID assistance, she co-founded the startup Refill Me, which cuts down the plastic use by dispensing household liquids from a vending machine. Alue has now received a grant from USAID to scale the rollout of the vending machines across Nur Sultan. Lastly, I would like to talk about COVID-19. The pandemic has impacted women disproportionately around the world. It's exposed society's reliance on women, both on the front lines and at home. This has certainly been the case in Central Asia, where so many health workers have directly suffered from the pandemic. Beyond the front lines, women's ability to work, study, and lead is under threat due to the severe shock in resources in the societies, as well as the economies of the region. USAID's programming aims to address the second and tertiary order effects of the pandemic, with women at the center of the recovery. Our goal is to build resilience in the economy and in communities. I and my colleagues at USAID want to see Kazakhstani women and girls succeed and become leaders and agents of change, advocating for their rights and for the rights of other women around the world. I would like to thank Ambassador Kazakyanov for his longstanding leadership on this issue. I also would like to thank Lazar Ramazanova, the chair of the National Commission on Women and Children, and the team at the Ministry of National Economy. We work together to ensure more equitable access to resources, training, and opportunities, especially in rural and underserved areas. Thank you for inviting me to help commemorate the 30th anniversary of the Kazakh-US partnership. We value Kazakhstan's leadership and insight on the advancement of women's economic empowerment in Kazakhstan, Central Asia, and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Kaur. I would now would like to turn to Ms. Lazat Ramazanova, Deputy of the Majlis of the Parliament of the Republic of Kazakhstan, Chairwoman of the National Commission on Women's Affairs and Family and Demographic Policy under the President of the Republic of Kazakhstan, and Chairwoman of the Council of Businesswomen of Atamakan. Ms. Ramazanova.
I'm sorry, I will speak in Russia.
Please do.
My English is not very well. Okay, thank you. Я благодарю, во-первых, сегодняшние площадки, которые дают возможность нам обсудить очень острые вопросы, которые, наверное, не только в Казахстане на повестке дня. В первую очередь, все мировое сообщество сейчас с этой проблемой столкнулось очень остро. Мы говорим в первую очередь, наверное, о последствиях коронавируса, который обнажил проблемы, которые были в каждой стране, и заострил внимание в первую очередь на самых уязвимых, это на женщинах и на детях. Как председатель Национальной комиссии по делам женщин и семейно-демографической политики при президенте я приветствую эту площадку. С удовольствием восприняла обращение посла господина Казаханова. Инициатива Соединенных Штатов, она продолжает, находит свое развитие дальше, и сегодняшнее обсуждение тому доказательство. Что бы я хотела сказать? Да, есть у нас статистика, очень большую совместную работу мы провели, но если мы возьмем рынок труда Казахстана, ну, чтобы примерно видеть наши перспективы взаимодействия. Это порядка 8 миллионов рабочих мест. Из них 1 миллион дают женщины, которые работают в малом среднем бизнесе. И эти 1 миллион женщин – это 43%. То есть это очень большой рынок. Благодарю коллег, которые говорили в вопросах, остановились на вопросах глобального гендерного равенства. Безусловно, в Казахстане за один и тот же труд женщина и мужчина получают одинаковую заработную плату. Однако доступ к женщине, к более финансово емким рабочим местам немного ограничено. Со своей стороны Казахстан привержен гендерному равенству. Это один из основных постулатов конституционных прав граждан Казахстана. Равные права мужчин и женщин у нас зафиксированы на самом высшем уровне. Вместе с тем, в прошлом году глава государства объявил новые задачи перед страной. Это расширить, то есть квотировать квазигосударственный сектор, и присутствие женщин в квазигосударственном секторе должно прийти к цифре 30%. Чтобы было, я думаю, вы все примерно знаете экономический расклад Казахстана. Когда мы говорим квазигосударственный сектор, мы имеем в виду практически 70% экономики. И именно те индустриальные сектора, куда мы бы хотели, чтобы пришли профессиональные женские кадры. Эта работа в Казахстане началась. Я думаю, в рамках совместной работы мы бы могли вместе поучаствовать в этом, в разработке методологических рекомендаций и необходимых действий по реализации этой квоты. Мы понимаем, что эта квота будет реализовываться постепенно, сбалансированно. Это первое. Вторая часть. Согласна, что индустриальная сторона у нас в разрезе экономики, она давлеет, и понимаем, что нам необходимы новые инструменты по расширению присутствия женщин в этом секторе. Несколько лет назад участвовала и встречалась с представителями ЮНИДО, которые призваны, ООНовская организация, которая призвана расширить возможности женщин именно в индустриальном секторе. Я думаю и надеюсь, что мы все-таки здесь найдем точки соприкосновения. Для этого мы должны использовать вот эту 30% квоту в квазигосударственном секторе. Именно государственный сектор намерен показать пример частному сектору, как необходимо ее реализовывать. Со своей стороны, как национальная комиссия, мы, конечно же, этот вопрос будем, безусловно, с применением наилучших практик мировых применять. Я бы хотела конкретно остановиться на кейсах или на тех проектах, которые бы мы могли совместно реализовать. В первую очередь, конечно же, это улучшение качества человеческого капитала, то есть это сегмент знаний, обучающий сегмент, который очень востребован сегодня. Можно было бы это сопроводить ежегодным замером индекса женской предпринимательной активности. Это важное исследование, которое нужно постоянно проводить, и мы готовы со своей стороны, чтобы в этом участвовал не только международный сектор, но в первую очередь государственный сектор, который призван расширять эти экономические возможности женщин. Второе. В этом году в рамках предвыборной программы правящей партии Нур-Отан уже дан старт открытию 17 ресурсных центров по всему Казахстану. 17 ресурсных центров мы хотим ориентировать на самый эффективный инструмент борьбы с бедностью – это кооперация. Мы хотим, чтобы казахстанский закон о кооперации, который, по мнению многих экспертов, является очень передовым законом о кооперации, начал работать и эффективно применяться именно в женской кооперации. И здесь есть очень большое поле работы совместной. Мы очень будем благодарны, если подключатся наши американские коллеги именно к реализации этих 17 во всех регионах Казахстана ресурсных центров. Первый кейс мы предлагаем вам рассмотреть – женская кооперация. Почему? Буквально вчера прошла конференция в Нур-Султане, где выступил глава государства, и мы посмотрели простых женщин, которые пришли с регионов, рассказали свою историю успеха. И эта история успеха означала, что вопреки той тяжелой ситуации социальной, в которой она находилась, вопреки тому, что она была многодетная мать, и муж был неожиданно стал инвалидом в результате инсульта, она нашла в себе силы, нашла таких же женщин, которые нуждались в помощи, не стала ждать помощи со стороны, а открыла свое предпринимательское дело вместе с этими женщинами. Действительно, ее история вдохновляет. Я благодарна предыдущему спикеру, которая отметила наших соотечественниц, которых я сама знаю, и готова про них тоже очень много рассказывать. Я очень рада, что наши коллеги из Соединенных Штатов говорят о них нам. Огромное спасибо. Пример Акмарал Басировой с Алматы, многодетной матери, станет той самой success story для наших казахстанок на базе этих ресурсных центров. Я очень много могу говорить. Женщины и их продвижение, их успех – это смысл моей жизни, это смысл моей работы, поэтому я благодарю каждого, кто вносит хотя бы немного полезного и необходимого для женщин в реализации ее первой мечты – быть востребованной, быть услышанной, быть понятой. Огромное спасибо всем, успехов в нашем обсуждении.
Thank you very much, Ms. Ramazanova, for those inspiring words. Our next speaker is Ms. Katrina Fotovat, the senior official at the Secretary's Office of Global Women's Issues at the U.S. Department of State.
Thank you so much, Teddy. Good morning and good evening, Ambassador Kazakhanov, Chairwoman Kuspen, Chairwoman Ramazanova, and other distinguished guests. It is wonderful to be here with all of you today. My name is Kat Fotovat. I am the senior official at the Secretary's Office of Global Women's Issues at the Department of State. I want to start off by congratulating the Embassy of Kazakhstan on hosting this event. Thank you for convening all of us for I know will be a very fruitful conversation to talk about the importance of women's economic empowerment. Let me take this opportunity to share that gender equality and women's empowerment, including women's economic empowerment, are top priorities for the Biden-Harris administration. The United States will continue to champion women's economic empowerment, which is critical to addressing the challenges facing our time. These challenges include security, healthcare, including the COVID-19 pandemic, gender-based violence, climate change, and racial and economic inequality. As the past year has shown, women's economic empowerment is more important now than ever. As a result of COVID-19 pandemic, we have seen an alarming exodus of women from the workplace. Here in the United States, our Vice President, Kamala Harris, has called this a national emergency, as too many women are forced to choose between their careers or businesses and adequate care for their families and loved ones. The World Bank's recently updated Women, Business, and the Law report notes that in the past year, including in response to COVID-19, 40 countries around the world have introduced leave or benefit policies to help parents with childcare. This is encouraging, but these measures may not be enough to stop the exodus of women from the workforce. Around the world, women's labor force participation rates are unequal to men. Decent work opportunities are often far too limited, and significant gender pay gaps in the labor market remain. Accordingly, the US government works to increase women's global labor force participation and advancement in the workplace by providing women access to quality education, training, and support. In addition, the US government upholds strong labor standards so women can secure and thrive in well-paying jobs in their local economies. We also partner with governments, the private sector, and civil society to increase women and girls' access to skills training, STEM education, and technology to respond to critical needs. Going forward, all of this and more will be critical to addressing the exacerbated challenges that COVID has presented. Women entrepreneurs are a growing market force, serving as a critical source of innovation, job creation, and fueling economic growth. However, women-owned businesses often do not have equal access to the capital needed to stabilize or expand their businesses. Women entrepreneurs often lack access to market information, digital service, networks, mentorship, and other resources that enable them to overcome the obstacles of starting and growing their businesses, as well as connecting with buyers. That is why we are committed to increasing the access of women entrepreneurs and business owners to finance, market opportunities, and training to establish their growing businesses. The Biden administration recognized the critical role of partnerships to achieving lasting change. We value our partnership with Kazakhstan to advance women's economic empowerment, a shared priority. We recognize your leadership to economically empower women as evidenced in our bilateral relationship, as well as through our regional engagements. And we seek to build connectivity with Central Asia and Afghanistan. I look forward to hearing more about your efforts to empower Afghan women later in this program. As Assistant Secretary Thompson noted, we would welcome the opportunity to deepen our cooperation on women's economic empowerment by addressing barriers and solutions to women's finance as a follow-on to our discussion on women's economic empowerment in the Enhanced Strategic Policy Dialogue in December. We look forward to collaborating with the government of Kazakhstan in support of women's business associations and women business leaders' engagement and addressing the barriers they face in the economy through a planned program including women across Central Asia, led by the Secretary's Office of Global Women's Issues. As you know, our International Development Finance Corporation, also known as DFC, is committed to unlocking the multi-trillion-dollar opportunities that women present and a critical partner for us. And I will pass the floor back to you, Teddy, to introduce Alec Paxson.
Thank you very much, Ms. Fotovat. Actually, first I'm going to introduce Ms. Penelope Nas, who is the President of International Public Affairs and Sustainability at UPS. And she will discuss how the private sector sees women's economic empowerment globally. Over to you, Ms. Nas.
And I hope you can all hear me. I'm coming to you from my basement because, like many of you, I'm at home today with 3 children who don't have school. And so the broadband in my neighborhood is currently fully being used, I think, for gaming. And so if I go in and out, I apologize, but it's the life we all live today. Mr. Ambassador, thank you so much for including me in this, and I want to wish you congratulations as you move on to your next chapter. It's been wonderful having you in Washington, and thank you again for everything you've done. I also want to thank, in general, the government of Kazakhstan. I had hoped to come and see your beautiful country and to visit last June for the WTO ministerial, but again, you know, that hasn't worked out as we've all planned. So I hope to get there at another point in time and to see all of you and all of your country and all of its glory in person. So I'm here to talk and to present the private sector's view today with regards to women's economic empowerment. It's a subject we're passionate about at UPS. But I have to say, I hope that we all put ourselves out of business and that in the coming years, we don't have to be having these sessions about women's economic empowerment because we're all going to become empowered. And I know coming out of COVID, I have to say, I would hire a woman in a heartbeat at the moment. Women in this crisis have had to be more agile. I've worked 16 hours a day while making 3 meals a day, educating 3 kids at home, and doing all the dishes. If that's not agility, perseverance, determination, and hard work, I don't know what is. So as we think about the future, I think the future is bright. And the future for women in particular, and the lessons we're going to take from this crisis, I hope, will lead us all to success. Because what we're going to need to move the world forward is the skills we've had to develop during the past year. Now, in the private sector, I would say we're focused on a couple of specific areas that try to help with women's economic empowerment. First and foremost is our power as a person who purchases supplies and sets up global value chains. The more we can incorporate and diversify our global value chains, and by that reach out to suppliers who may not have been on our radar screen before, that is one of the most important things we can do to help bring more women and other diverse businesses into our supply chains. And it's something that I know a lot of us are focused on as we think about building resilient supply chains in the post-COVID environment. The second thing we're focused on is the rules. It's really important that we make sure that the rules of the road are fair and equitable, and in some cases even go a little beyond to ensure that everybody enjoys the same opportunities. And that's something that we do via the trade agreements, which is why I've been working so closely with Kazakhstan in the run-up to the WTO ministerial, but it's also something that we see in domestic laws as well. And so getting the rules right to really make sure that women have access to capital, women have access to movement, women have the right to own their own property are really important things that we're focused on. The second thing that we're focused, or the third thing that we're focused on is capacity building. So at UPS, we've participated with many on this call and speaking today to help educate more than 6,000 women and small businesses in the past year and a half. So capacity building and helping people build those skills, particularly people that may not have been exposed to some of the technicalities of trade or business, is an essential component to creating success and to helping empower women who want to explore the multitude of opportunities that exist in today's digital world. And last is networking. And someone earlier on the call mentioned the AWE program as one that we participate in a few countries around the world. But helping women entrepreneurs network and get into the right places where they can do business, where they can be incorporated in global value chains is really another essential component to this. So if you add up fair and equitable rules, if you add up the right domestic environments, which we've talked about also on this call, if you add up capacity building and you throw in some networking, I think we've got a win-win-win that's out there that will really help ensure that women entrepreneurs and women business owners really help have the opportunities and can help us all as we build our way out of the COVID pandemic. So with that, I want to thank everybody on this call for all your dedication to this issue, for all the work you do on these issues every day. I think it's based on the statistics we've already heard on this call, it's critically important for the world that we ensure that we're bringing everybody into the economy and everybody in our societies along with us as we try to move forward with women's economic empowerment. So with that, thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me and having UPS today on this call. We greatly appreciate it. I turn it back to you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Nas. And you're absolutely right that this pandemic has asked more of women than seems humanly possible. But I have to say that doing all the dishes sounds to me like the job of children. So, so with that, I turn. I somehow muted myself. Sorry about that. So, okay. Mr. Paxton, then Mr. Paxton is the acting managing director of the Gender Lens Investing at US IDF. And we'd like to hear more about the 2X program. Over to you.
Wonderful, and good morning and good evening, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here today to talk about the work that the Development Finance Corporation is doing to advance gender equality. So as mentioned, I'm the acting managing director for Gender Lens Investing at DFC, which we refer to as 2X because of the multiplier effect of investing in women. DFC is the US government's development finance bank that partners with the private sector to solve critical development challenges in emerging markets. We have investments in over 100 countries and have a portfolio of over $30 billion, and we invest across sectors. As many of you may be aware, our primary financial products include direct debt investments, political risk insurance, investments in support for private equity funds, and equity investments. Our portfolio spans a broad range of industries from infrastructure to financial services, agriculture, healthcare, energy, education, and we look to lead the private sector to where it otherwise wouldn't go, specifically to achieve greater and more inclusive economic development by doing that. And we know that if we want to advance inclusive economic development globally, we have to empower women. And at DFC, we think that investing in women is not only the right thing to do, but it is also an incredible investment opportunity. As was mentioned at the top, McKinsey found that if women participated in the economy at the same level as men, global GDP would grow $28 trillion. But despite this immense opportunity, women still face economic challenges, including a roughly $1.5 trillion shortfall in access to credit. This prevents women from reaching their full potential, but we also see it as a business opportunity for financial institutions. Research confirms that when women are included in the economy, countries are more stable and more prosperous. And we know that women tend to reinvest more of their income back into their families and into their communities, and on goods and services that improve families' welfare. Women are also smart economic investments. We know that women repay loans more reliably than men and grow companies at the same rate or faster than men. We also know that gender-balanced teams generate outsized returns compared to their all-male peers. So at DFC, we take an intentional and deliberate approach to investing in women. And over the last few years, we've mobilized over $7 billion towards gender-inclusive businesses, and that includes $4 billion of DFC's own capital. This includes over 120 discrete 2X qualifying transactions and puts DFC among the more active gender-led investors globally. We apply this intentional approach by prioritizing investments that meet the 2X criteria. And this criteria focuses on businesses that are owned by women and run by women, but also businesses that create quality job opportunities for women, and on businesses that provide products or services that disproportionately benefit women. Maybe a couple of examples to drive the point home. So in the water, sanitation, and health space, DFC provided a $20 million loan to Water Equity to help it expand its portfolio of loans to low-income populations, primarily women, to help them purchase clean water and sanitation improvements for their home. We see this as a project that addresses barriers to greater economic or women's economic participation by reducing the time women spend in certain markets collecting water for their families. We are also very focused on putting a gender lens on our response to COVID. For instance, DFC provided a $25 million loan to SEAF Emergency Facility for Women, SMEs, which is a global loan facility that supports emergency lending to small and medium enterprises that are gender inclusive. As we look forward, we see a lot of opportunity to continue down this work, to continue down this path, and to double down on the work that we've been doing to advance gender equity globally. So with that brief introduction, I'll turn it back. And again, thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Mr. Paxton. I would now like to turn to Ms. Somaya Wasit to tell us about her experience as an Afghan woman who received the opportunity to study in Kazakhstan. Ms. Wasit, over to you. Well, I think, unfortunately, I believe that Somaya's video froze right now. Somaya, can you?
Yes, really sorry, I think my internet connection is not stable. Thanks a lot once again for inviting me in such an important program. Afghanistan, officially the Islamic Republic of Afghanistan, is a landlocked country at the crossroads of Central and South Asia. The economy of Afghanistan has steadily improved in the last decade due to the return of large number of wealthy expats and modernization of nations, and also in agriculture sector, and establishment of more trade routes with neighboring and regional countries. I believe in collectivism rather than individualism, because collectivism will pave the way for equivalent improvement. Therefore, I'm sure that our neighbors can help us more than any country regarding gender equality and economical improvement, because each of these countries has gone through a dark period, but they have been able to rebuild their countries. Unfortunately, Afghanistan is one of the countries where, despite the dark period of war, there is still hidden wars that have prevented the country from progressing rapidly. And also promoting the role of women in government, politics, and economy is one of the achievements of democracy in this country. Since the beginning of the new government, more women have turned to the economic sectors and entrepreneurship. But nowadays, we are a witness of thousands of women in large businesses and small startups, both in e-businesses and real markets as well. And what we always have needed in expert women in these two sectors, and this can be provided by educated women. Luckily, the government is able to provide such support for women with the collaboration of many countries beside our neighbors like Kazakhstan. This time, the government of Kazakhstan succeeded to support Afghan women with the financial support of the European Union and implementation of UNDP. Since Kazakhstan is a country that supports women, especially in the entrepreneurship and economic sector, this opportunity will be one of the great achievements for Afghan women. And I can say that I am a lucky girl, not me, but the rest of my classmates as well, but rest of the Afghan women who are studying right now in Kazakhstan, that I am lucky because I was able to win this scholarship. And also I achieved one of my goals regarding steadily progressing in life. From the time I came here, the only thing I am thinking of is improvement. and gaining new skills, which I did because of this provided opportunity. And in addition, from being among the people of Kazakhstan and especially their women, I have found the courage of launching my business more than past. And I had a business idea in my head for nearly 3 years, I can say, but I never had the courage of starting and implementing my business idea. But since I came into Kazakhstan and saw women and girls are working in this area, I got the confidence and courage that I can do the same as them. I did not pay attention to the problems and that I will face during the progress of my business. And when in last year, summer holidays, I went back to home, I had the whole plan of my business with good timing, and eventually I launched my business. Furthermore, the pandemic situation became an opportunity for my business promotion. Now I am financially independent and I made a brand of my own country and I will develop it. Yes, of course, I will develop it till it become a factory that all women are working there. What I'm learning here is the door towards success for me. I want to mention as well that not only me, but many other girls in this project have got new ideas and courage, like one of my classmates who tends to build a research center for women in Afghanistan. Since we lack such quantitative research centers and experts, of course, in this area. And I can give you many examples of such girls among Afghan girls of this project, that how much this project helped them and support them. At this point, I can say that the result of success of this project is very obvious, even now. In conclusion, I would like to thank the government of Kazakhstan and European Union and UNDP for providing such opportunity to share, to spread my horizons and pave the way for me to learn new experiences and succeeding in my life. Thanks a lot from all of you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Wasit. You are a role model to all of us. And Sumaya Wasit was our last featured speaker, and we do have some time for a discussion. So I have a few questions, which I will ask in turn to our US and Kazakhstani participants. So here's my question to the US participants. How do you see the approach to women's economic empowerment evolving under the new administration? Kat Fotovat, maybe if you'd like to start.
Sure, thank you so much. We see the approach to women's economic empowerment evolving in that certainly post-pandemic, we need to look at issues about childcare, healthcare, and making sure that we are applying lessons learned to make sure that we have women back into the workforce. Additionally, I think our commitment is stronger than ever. I think the need, has increased more than ever to make sure that we are empowering women in the economic sector, empowering women in entrepreneurship. So in order for all of us, for the world to recover from the pandemic and the costs of the pandemic, we need to make sure that we are working together. So I would say that the commitment is renewed and strengthened because the need has also just exponentially increased.
Thank you very much. Alec, Paxton, or maybe Penelope Nas? Alec, over to you.
Happy to jump in quick. When I look at kind of what comes next for DFC in this area, I see us just doubling down on the efforts that we've already done. So we've done a lot to make sure that we're applying a gender responsive approach to our COVID work and the money that we're putting out the door to help rebuild. I think that continues. I think you'll continue to see aggressive and really thoughtful new approaches to this kind of work, including work around healthcare, including work around agriculture, where we're going to be making investments specifically with a gender lens in priority sectors that we know have been hardest hit by COVID. And that's kind of what I see coming up for DFC.
Thank you very much. Ms. Nas?
I really can't speak on behalf of the government. I can only speak on behalf of the business community, which is to say that our efforts continue. And, you know, we're looking at both the change in administration in the US, as well as the change at the World Trade Organization with the new Director General there, Dr. Ngozi, as exciting opportunities to continue the work that we're doing and to see how we move forward in a way that, again, will create the conditions for women's economic empowerment. And I think the other thing is we just have a lot of tremendous advocates out there at the top of a lot of organizations. And I think that's going to be incredibly helpful too as we try to move forward. So.
Thank you very much. Now I have a question from Ms. Ramazanova. In your view, what kind of assistance and partnerships will best accelerate women's economic empowerment in Kazakhstan or in Central Asia?
Несколько спикеров останавливались на необходимости кооперации, ну, в смысле, объединения усилий женщин, региональном сближении их возможностей. Я думаю, вот это должен стать таким базовым моментом, может быть, потому что воодушевляет, вдохновляет выступление последнего спикера, когда она искренне делилась своей историей, своими ощущениями. Это, наверное, наглядный пример, как женщины могут между собой, несмотря на различия стран, на различия языка, культур, находить общую возможность помогать друг другу. Здесь мы, Казахстан, уже несколько лет подряд выдвигаем идею создания Центра гендерных инициатив. Центр гендерных инициатив в Центральной Азии и Афганистан. Есть очень много вариантов реализовать. Каждая страна Центральной Азии наработала какой-то кейс для эффективного сотрудничества. Это и гендерные вопросы, это создание общих торговых онлайн-площадок, которые востребованы именно в период пандемии. Это, наверное, открытие дополнительных источников ресурсов. Я согласна с вами, что и в Соединенных Штатах это серьезная проблема, источники финансирования, но женские кредитные линии, они показывают свою эффективность. 3 года назад частные инвестиции частного банка Казахстана открыли отдельно кредитную линию в общей сложности 3 миллиарда тенге. Возврат составил 97%. Это микрофинансирование. Это самый эффективный источник. Женщины, давайте констатировать факт, пока еще в микробизнесе. Пока нам не нужны большие ресурсы, нам необходимы микрофинансирование на продвижение и расширение своих экономических возможностей. То есть обучение, доступность микрофинансирования и в первую очередь онлайн-торговые площадки. Между трансграничными странами Центральной Азии, Казахстан и Афганистан. Ну, это мое мнение.
Well, thank you very much. I now would like to turn to Ms. Kuspan. And I'd like to ask you if, in your view, what are some specific needs? We already heard about this from Ms. Ramazanova, but are there other specific demands that you see among women entrepreneurs in the wider Central Asia region? Over.
Я отвечу по-русски, если позволите. Мне кажется, что нужно больше осведомленности, больше информации об успехах, о случаях успеха. Вот моя коллега госпожа Рамазанова рассказывала о нашей встрече с женщиной, которая попала в очень трудную ситуацию в Алматы, и создала прекрасный бизнес и обеспечила работой не только себя, но и очень многих женщин, таких же, как она. Это вот одна история успеха. Когда я стала о ней рассказывать со вчерашнего дня своим знакомым, они сказали: о, можно было бы и у нас такое же сделать. Мне кажется, иногда полезно рассказывать о успехах, и для этого можно было бы создать какую-то, это очень просто, не знаю, страницу в Фейсбуке или что-то такое, где будут такие случаи рассказываться. Вот. Ну и потом я в своем выступлении говорила о законодательном обеспечении прав женщин. Мне кажется, иногда женщины не всегда знают о своих правах. Вот это тоже очень важно. И в этом плане вот эти центры, о которых говорила Лязат Рамазанова, тоже очень важны. Важно, чтобы выпускались какие-то брошюры. Важно, чтобы женщины были информированы о своих правах и о возможностях заниматься бизнесом. Вот, наверное, все. Спасибо.
Спасибо вам огромное. I would like to turn to Dr. Groen, if I may. Dr. Groen, in your view, what are the most important policies that countries should tackle as we are looking at this recovery from the pandemic already? We're thinking about this post-pandemic period.
Thank you. I already mentioned some of the areas that I think are really important for investment. I think some of the legal reforms that really help women's economic empowerment are critical to take forward. But I also think making, as I had said, childcare part of the economic infrastructure that involves regulatory reforms in terms of safety and the environment for healthy child development, but also the right type of career trajectories for the workers who are in that sector for decent work and wages and so forth going forward. I also think there's probably room on the financial front to reform. I think it's critical, for instance, as we think about helping women businesses, you know, many women don't necessarily own the same type of property as men or have the same property rights. So any reforms to help women own assets and access assets is really critical to enable them to be able to borrow. But in that regard, I think things like movable collateral registries, which allow women to be able to use, whether it's their inventories or other things, making those kinds of reforms, I think is really quite critical. And maybe I can say, and I think the other front is really important. I think, you know, because of the data, we really need to work with, governments can work with the private sector. We need to have financial frameworks that help extend the kind of credit, working capital, equity investments in the high growth women entrepreneurs. But I also think that for those who are very small and at the bottom, social protection systems are really critical. And social protection systems need to cover those who are quote unquote informal and expand their social registries. And this is actually one of the things that we see during this crisis, particularly is the expansion of social protection, not only to people who have been excluded, but also in terms of allowing certain other types of what we call cash plus interventions. So it might be subsidies for childcare. It might be enabling the transfer to be used for the business expenses. Those kinds of things, innovations are happening. And I think they're really of interest to be looking at. I'd be really remiss, I think, if I didn't say also something that a previous speaker had mentioned. I think it's also really critical that we elevate what has long been the shadow pandemic, meaning gender-based violence, into our COVID responses. Now, there are many countries that don't still criminalize sexual harassment in the workplace. That's absolutely critical for women to be able to have an important and productive work life. But I also think on the investment side, governments through their fiscal policies can actually make investments in ensuring that health systems have the right type of response and protocols for survivors of gender-based violence. And of course, we know in education, there's many areas that can be taken up in terms of changing social norms, preventing violence against teachers by principals or among students and so forth. So elevating GBV, which has become so prevalent during this pandemic, into that policy space is just critical. And I have to say that doing that will have important effects for women entrepreneurs and women employees and help them be productive in the workplace. And it has great effects for men too, by the way, because gender-based violence is associated with alcoholism and other behaviors that influence their ability to fully participate and have productivity effects as well. So those are just a few, but there's many others.
Thank you very much, Dr. Ground. This is really helpful as we're all thinking about how to approach the post-pandemic world and maybe prepare for the next crisis. So my last question is for Ms. Wasit. You spoke about the how inspired you were by the example of some of entrepreneurs in Kazakhstan to start your own business. So I was wondering if you can tell us a little bit more about one of those Kazakhstani entrepreneurs who inspired you, or give us like a real life example. Thank you.
Thanks a lot for asking. Well, actually, in Afghanistan, since the situation is like not every woman can do business easily, because this is not in the tradition of that country, because the people of that country is more male dominated. That's why this was very difficult for me. But when I came here, it was not only the effect of one person, because everywhere I was going, I was just seeing the women are working. It does not matter whether they are in the small shops, even if they were working in very big shops. They even when I was sitting with the businessmen from Afghanistan over there and talked with them, they were mentioning the name of some of the Kazakhstani women, and they told us like they are very brave enough to start their own businesses. And I could see that although they have some of struggles and some of difficulties in their country, but yet they are very brave enough to start their own businesses. They are not thinking about what the culture and what the people are saying. So this was the effect that I got from the people of Kazakhstan, especially from the women. And I saw that they are all doing online businesses, and online business are very interesting thing that like massive group of the women tend to do that. So I saw it through this way that, okay, since Kazakhstan women can do it and can implement it without any fear, why I cannot do it? Why I'm paying attention to the society, that what they are like saying. I can struggle, but it doesn't matter. I will definitely, eventually I will be independent, and I will help the other girls to be brave and also to achieve their dreams. So I really love the environment. That's why it affected me.
Thank you very much, Ms. Wasit. We are a little bit, we've exceeded our time a little bit, so this is all we have time for today. I would like to end by thanking Ambassador Kazakhanov, especially for his leadership on women's economic empowerment throughout his tenure here in Washington, and I'm sure in your next post in Nur-Sultan as well. We all look forward to working with you, and also really to thank the Embassy of the Republic of Kazakhstan for organizing this very important discussion with esteemed guests from all over the world, really. And I thank you all. This is an incredibly important topic to discuss as we're looking to recover from the COVID-19 pandemic. and to create a world that is benefits all. With that, I would like to...
Theodora, if you permit me, I would like to take this opportunity and extend my sincere congratulations to all ladies participants and all ladies around the world for the upcoming 8th of March International Women's Day that we will mark and celebrate next Monday. Thank you very much. It was extremely useful and important event. We learned a lot, and I would like to thank all the participants, and thank you, Theodora, for your very, very efficient moderation. Thank you.
Thank you.